It's your girl Kiki Reader, and welcome back to the Always Reading Book Club. We are currently in the Alpha series, and for that first book, which is called Alpha, I'll have that description, the link for that below, so you can get caught up. But today we're going to go ahead and dive right into the second book in that series, which is Beta. So this book starts off showing us that Roth and Kiri have been traveling the world. I mean, from Vancouver all the way to like Hong Kong. They're currently in Vietnam, and they're on a boat, which Roth, of course, paid cash for. And he also paid for like a local person to come in this evening and make like an authentic meal. So they have snake wine, which did something to Kiri. And so they had a great night. And then the next morning she gets up to go see him. He's outside steering the boat, and she has her blanket around her, and he's like, get in front of me. And so she gets in front of him, and he's like, you can't make a sound, because there were actually locals like on the side that could clearly see them. And she's like, okay, I'll try, because you know I'm a screamer. So she tries her best not to, but she kind of does let out a scream, and the guys can kind of see the motion. They kind of know what's going on, so they're laughing and joking. And they leave from there, and they go to a chateau of his in France. And when she wakes up, Roth isn't in the bed. And so she's like going around the house. She's like calling his name, and he is nowhere to be found. And then when she goes back to the room, I guess she didn't see this initially, but in the bed, there was a knife that was stabbed to a note, and it was in red ink, and it was clearly a woman's handwriting, and it says, he belongs to me. So she knew, okay, someone's taking him. So she calls Harris. She's screaming in the phone, and she's like, someone took him, like someone took him. And he's like, calm down, because he's trying to get the story. He's trying to get all the information. And she describes everything to him that happened. And he's like, all right, pack as much of your stuff as you can that you need. You need to pack like t-shirts, like light stuff. And I'm in London. I was taking care of some business. He's like, but I'm coming to you. He's like, do not leave that house for any reason. Don't leave. And so she was like, okay. So, of course, she's freaking out, and she tried to eat breakfast. That didn't work. It's like her mind is just running. So it's been a couple of hours, and she hears a car pull up, but when she looks out, that's not Harris. So she goes into the garage where the vehicles are, and she waits. And then when she hears like the smashing of the glass, she gets in that Range Rover and she hits the brake, and she hits the garage door to lift it up, and she flies out of there. And so, of course, the guy's quick. You know, these are professionals. And they're like shooting guns at her. They've shot out the back window. She remembered like, oh yeah, this car, I can like call Harris. I just have to say it. So she's like, call Harris. So the call calls Harris, and he's like, where are you? And she's like, I'm in the car, like they're chasing me. And he's like, okay. He's like, just keep going straight. He's like, just keep gunning it. And she was freaking out. She's like, I don't know what to do. Like, they've shot out one of her side mirrors. Like, she is freaking out. And so he's like, do whatever you have to do to survive. He's like, I'm on my way to you. I'm coming. And so he stays on the phone with her, and he's trying to talk her through it. And she, of course, is freaking out. Then there's like this little vehicle that gets in the way. And he's like, mow it over. You got to do it. And she's like, no, because she didn't want to hurt anyone. But he was like, it's either you or them. So she winds up hitting the car, and the car, it's this little car, and so it spins out and it explodes, and then she sees it in the rear view, and then she's freaking out because she's like, oh my God, I just killed someone. But of course, the other vehicle that the guy's in, which it's an Audi, he's still coming. And so by this point, Harris can see the smoke. So he's like, I see the smoke. I'm getting close. He's like, now keep going. He's like, try and decrease your speed a little bit. He was like, and then you are going to slam on your brakes when I count to 3. And she's like, okay. And he's like, are you ready? She's like, no. He's like, well, get ready. So he counts to 3. She slams on the brakes. She tries to keep control of the car, and then here comes, she sees his car coming, and he slams into the Audi, and that car gets knocked off, but the guy that's driving it isn't dead, and of course Harris kills him. So then she runs to Harris, and he's like, are you all right? Are you all right? She's like, I killed someone. I think I killed someone. And he told her again, he's like, better you than them. Better them than you. So he starts to tell her, she's like, who could have taken him? And at first he didn't really want to say anything because he didn't know how much Roth had told her. And so he was kind of trying not to, because there's still that allegiance to him. Like, even though he's missing, he still doesn't want to tell information that Roth doesn't want her to know. And she's like, listen, I have been shot at. This man is missing. You tell me whatever it is that you know. So he goes on to tell her about he's like, he used to deal in arms, right? And she's like, yeah, he told me about that. He was like, well, there was a woman named Gina. Gina is the daughter of Vitaly. I'm going to mess this name up. I know it, but it's Karahalias. And so that was who Roth was like running arms for at one point. And then because Roth was so good, Vitaly wanted him to start, like, he wanted him to be a hitman. And so that wasn't the route, of course, that Roth wanted to go. I mean, but he was making it like a killing doing it. And that's kind of why he kept doing the arms dealing for as long as he did, because it made him a lot of money. So he had met Gina, which is the daughter, and that's how he got introduced to Vitaly. And so Gina's like really sadistic. She likes pain. She's like a sadist. So she gets off on watching other people in pain. And so they had a brief relationship, but she was not okay when he decided to leave. Because you don't necessarily leave arms dealing. It's not really something someone normally leaves. So Harris was kind of telling her all this info while they were headed back to the house, and they got another vehicle, and I think it was the Aston Martin they got, and he went and kind of surveyed to look at the scene as well. And so he's like, that's who I think has him. And so if that's the case, then we're on our way to Marseille, I think is how you say it. And so she's like, okay. So she goes. And once they're in Marseille, they meet someone named Henri. And it's someone that Roth knows, Harris knows through Roth. And they're all in he has like a bar. Yes, I guess you'd call it, it's a bar. And they're all in there, they're having drinks. And Kiri's kind of flipping out because she's like, we're up here having drinks and like we need to be trying to find him. But she didn't understand what was happening. And so all of a sudden he's like, get down, because they knew they were going to send their men for him. And so they get down. There's tires that come to a screeching halt in front of the building. And then all of a sudden there's just massive gun shooting going on. And Henri had like a sawed-off shotgun, and Harris had his weapons, and so but they took them all out, And she's tripping because she's seeing dead bodies, and she's like, this is just, just this morning, this was not her life. And it's like, oh my gosh. So Henri's like, these were Vitaly's men. And Henri tells him, he's not going to stop, and especially if this is his daughter, because she's worse than the dad. So Harris tries to give Henri some money. He's like, I don't want anything. He's like, I don't really want to deal with this. He was like, but for Roth, he did save my life once. And so, for him, it was an honor to, try and repay a debt. And so at that point, Harris gives Kiri a gun because he's like, you're going to need this now. And at first she's all like, I don't know, I can, and he's like, here, you got to take it. And so Harris wound up having to trade the Aston Martin in for a little rinky-dink boat, but that was the only way that they were going to be able to get to Greece, because the name of the game is they're trying to get there as undetected as possible. And so then the book then goes to Roth. And so Roth wakes up and he is tied up to a bedpost, spread eagle, butt naked, and he automatically knows he's in Greece. He can smell the water. He knows where he is. And so then Gina walks in and she tells him, age looks good on you, and reminds him that he has always been hers. And that terminology was like, oh, so this is where he gets this crap from. Being so controlling and being so like it's mine, okay. So it kind of makes sense. And so he tells her, I'm not yours. I'll never be yours. And she's like, no, you are. She's like, when I had you before, you were a boy. You were younger. She's like, but I've paid attention to you. I've watched and I've seen you've been with many women. So you should be able to satisfy me now. And he was like, just, of course, cursing and just wanting her to like let him go. But she's not going to do that. And so she says that, his girl should be dead because he already sent a hitman to go get her. And Roth, of course, goes crazy. So Gina tries to give him, well, she actually does. She gives him a blowjob because he's like not hard at all. Like, even though she is considered like a beautiful woman, he knows what she is and he just doesn't find her attractive because we all know his brain is just all about Kiri. So he's just laying there and he's just flaccid. Like, he's not hard. So she starts to give him a blowjob, and at first he fights it, but then of course his body is going to defy him. And he starts to get hard, but he's never got fully erect, but it was enough to where she could sit on him. And so she raped him. And he never came though. And that infuriated her. And so then she's like, no worries. I have ways of making you do what I want. So she goes and she gets this pill, which has been banned in most of Europe. And she has her 2 bodyguards come in and they open his mouth. And she drops the pill in there and it dissolves with his saliva. And so within like a couple of hours, he was like this raging, horny maniac. And so she could just sit on it all day. And that's what she did. She just kept having sex with him. And so it takes Kiri, I don't know why I said her name wrong. It's Kiri. It takes Kiri and Harris about 48 hours to get to that island. So before they got there, he did give her like some shooting lessons while they were in the water, in the ocean. Because they're getting ready to go into some serious stuff. And so she needs to have like some type of knowledge, if they're going to even, maybe survive what they're about to do. And so they get there. There's 4 men waiting for them when they get up to the dock. And they're like, oh, she thought you guys were going to be here yesterday. And so then they gave the illusion that they were surrendering because the guys were like, give me your guns, blah, blah, blah. So Harris, Kiri gives hers. And Harris is putting up that illusion like he's giving up. But then he winds up, of course, Harris is op. So he like killed them all.